The South African Constitution states that the public administration must be governed by the democratic values and principles enshrined in it, including a high standard of professional ethics that must be promoted. As a country looking to find its feet when it comes to ethical issues and democracy, more civil servants and media organizations find themselves entangled on issues of ethical behavior and democracy. Where do we draw the line, though, doing the right thing or being ethical? Find out more about ethical behavior in South Africa. We're joined now by Chris Dobie from the Ethics Institute of South Africa in our studios in Tshwane. Good morning to you. Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Vuyo.
Just give us a global perspective of what the term ethics speaks to.
Vuyo, I suppose ethics has an academic meaning, but I think what we're interested in as South Africans is just the basic. Ethics is just about doing what is right or distinguishing between what is right and wrong. It's got to do with what is good and bad, right and wrong in personal, but generally what we're concerned about is in public life. I think the question we need to ask ourselves is, why is it that ethics has become such a dominant focus of discussion in our public space?
When you say doing what is right or wrong, particularly in the public space, how do you arrive at what is right and what is not?
I think in the public space we're looking at the question of trust. As a society, we find ourselves in bureaucratic systems, in large systems, and we need to be confident that the people in those systems are trustworthy individuals and that we can trust them in the decisions that they take. Just in the same way that a person in charge of a company needs to be trustworthy and has to speak to his stakeholders, a politician has to do the same thing. So it comes down to a question of public trust at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Can we trust the people that are in those positions?
One of the issues, of course, that has thrust this subject again into the public domain is the gift of a Mercedes-Benz vehicle to the Minister of Transport, Minister Sbu Ndebele. What is the ethical thing to do when contractors, perhaps, that you have had dealings with previously come to you as a public figure, as a politician, and say, here is a gift, we'd like to thank you for the interaction we've had in the past? What would be ethical to do?
I think one does need to have a look at the situation, what were the factors at play. But like I said, the question that the minister should be asking himself is, how is this being perceived by the public at the end of the day? Look, one could say there's an objective right and wrong. So in that situation, he has to be looking at, do my personal interests now conflict with the interests of my position, and can it be perceived to be in conflict with the duties that I have in my position? So in this specific case, I think looking at where the gift comes from, the right thing would be to give it back. I'm not saying that there was any corrupt intent on the part of the contractors. It could have been a thank you, but at the end of the day, does that amount to infringing on the trust that the public has in that position, and that the minister will be fulfilling his duties as impartially as he possibly can?
To decide to take the gift and sell it and perhaps give the proceeds to a charity organization or something like that, would you say that is ethical?
I think so. Obviously, the first choice would be not to be confronted with the gifts. I think what we're trying to get away from is a culture of gift giving. The Executive Code of Ethics actually does specify that a minister is not allowed to accept a gift for a function which he performed in his official capacity. So the code is quite clear on that. People do focus on the declaration part of the code a lot more, but there are many other aspects in the code which do give us a lot of guidance in saying that this thing is not acceptable. So while we're saying, okay, you have now been confronted with a gift and accepted the gift, that's one thing, but I think there's still sort of a sense of entitlement on the part of the contractors who have given the gift, or maybe a perceived sense of that, a perceived sense of obligation on the part of the minister. So The first prize, I think, is for us to move away from a culture of giving gifts. People are in official capacity. They are being paid a salary in that official capacity, and we want to move away from the point where we are bringing gifts into play and making it very difficult for politicians and public servants to remain objective in what they're doing. So I think that what we should be saying as politicians and public servants is, please, no gifts. It places us in a very difficult position. Let's move away from that culture.
Just talking about the area of declaration, what does it actually say? You can accept a gift and just declare it and then you're fine?
I think that's a very important point of discussion, because we're finding that happening quite a lot, that people say, look, I'm following procedure, I've declared my gift, surely I have now completed my moral responsibility on this. But the code is quite clear. It stipulates many other aspects, like I said, surrounding gifts. It says that the minister should not be placing himself in a conflicted position or even at the risk of being in such a conflicted position. So the declaration of the gift is purely an administrative part. When we come back to the ethical part, in other words, what is my moral responsibility as an individual in this case, it doesn't really come into play. When we declare gifts, it's an administrative thing that people do in order to improve the oversight that society has and that the people in position of authority there have. But it doesn't absolve that person from his moral responsibility. So in getting the gift, there's the question, should I be receiving this gift? Does this place me in a difficult position? Or can I accept it without anything? And there's basically gifts above 350 Rand need to be declared. That's what the code stipulates. But those are any gifts. Those are gifts that people receive in their private capacity. The code actually clearly stipulates that no gifts should be received for something which you have performed in your official capacity. So declaration is only an administrative part. People still have to step back and say, am I doing the right thing? Will the public still have all the trust in me that they should be having if I do go forward with accepting this gift?
Yeah.
So it's basically putting it in the open.
We've run out of time. Just very briefly, this issue around the individual and the person giving the gift. If there is no corrupt intention, and as an individual perhaps you believe that you would not succumb to any kind of pressure, how important is that in this whole equation?
I think South Africa has come through a very tough time in terms of public trust that I'm talking about. What we really should be seeing as a national project is building up that trust that people have in the public institutions, in democracy, and all the systems that we have in the country. So I think there is an objective measure that should be had, but at the moment, because of the importance that we should be placing on this as a country, people should be asking them firstly, is what I'm doing contributing to building up the public trust and the trust that people have in our public institutions?
Okay, let's leave it at that for now. We'll come back to this subject about ethics and giving gifts and receiving gifts, and perhaps let's ask you what your thoughts are. Public figures, politicians receiving gifts, should they receive gifts or should they not? Write to us. It's Morning Live at sabc.co.za. Send us an SMS 33726. Leanne has got the sports news.